go ahead and get started. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, so welcome to our second presentation today. On our second day, this is Natasha. I've enjoyed teaching Natasha. She's always right in the front with Keishi, and they've always got questions to ask and always want to practice. A lot of fun. Let me read her acknowledgement. She says, first, I would like to thank Mr. JC for guiding me in creating my thesis this whole year, as well as Mr. Zoran and Ms. Josephine for being my panelists. I would also like to thank my family and friends, especially Keishi, for listening to my stories during rhetoric class while working on our thesis, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Last, I would like to thank Mr. Wade for teaching me and being patient in checking my thesis. All right, and so we'll let Natasha start. Her title is, Will You Marry Me? Elimination of Societal Pressure to Marry for a Better Indonesian Society. Give me a second to set the timer and I'll tell you when you can start.
Okay.
All right, anytime you're ready.
So I can start whenever? Okay. You are sitting in your car with your brand new cheongsam, ready for this year's Chinese New Year. You exit the car, walk towards the open door, excited to receive this year's ang pao. However, instead of receiving ang pao, you receive questions like, kapan nikah? Mana pacarnya? Or, masa udah umur segini belum punya pacar? Suddenly, Chinese New Year becomes the holiday that you fear instead of the long-awaited one. Unfortunately, this does not only happen in the Chinese Indonesians community, but also in others, and it's becoming the reality for most unmarried Indonesians in or past their late 20s. Even though the act of pressuring individuals to marry may seem simple, the harmful effects impacts not only single individuals, but the whole society in the long term. If we trace back its history, society's pressure to marry has emerged even during the classical period of Greece and Rome. The Old Testament, which was written around 2,000 years ago, indirectly forms marriage pressure by emphasizing the concept of being fruitful and multiply. And during the 12th century, where the Catholic Church was still influential, marriage was considered a moral duty, and arranged marriages were still common. Media advancements in the 20th century post-war era further emphasized the pressure by portraying marriage as the ultimate goal of happiness. Despite the occurrence of social movements in the 21st century that challenged most traditional views, society still pressures individuals to marry, especially in East and Southeast Asian countries. One of them is Indonesia, where the society still considers marriage a crucial social standard, despite the growing number of Indonesian singles. The rise of Indonesian singles was revealed through a census, where the figures for male and female singles from the age group of 30 to 34 years old doubled in just 30 years. However, Indonesian communities like the Batak and Java culture still associates marital status with a higher social standing, especially for women. Indonesian society expects individuals to start marrying from the early 20s until the late 20s, and this expectation pressures individuals to marry before passing their expected age. Interestingly enough, a study revealed that this pressure mainly originates from single individuals' close surroundings, like relatives and friends. According to the Indonesian law itself, marriage is defined as a spiritual and physical connection between a man and a woman as husband and wife, with the purpose to establish a happy and everlasting family based on the belief of the one Almighty God. That is why the issue of marriage pressure is not to be underestimated, since it potentially leads to unstable marriage that is not aligned with the Indonesian law. To make matters worse, it is capable of harming individuals, families, and society as a whole. While one party believes that Indonesia must uphold the pressure to marry to prevent an increase in single individuals and the odds of premarital activities, Using pressure to encourage people to marry will only result in negative consequences for the society. Hence, Indonesian society should abolish the pressure to marry for 3 reasons. First, society's pressure to marry produces negative effects. Second, eliminating the societal pressure to marry will result in a more stable marriage. And third, eliminating the societal pressure to marry will generate a more stable society. Instead of preventing premarital activities, like many believe, society's pressure to marry produces negative effects. First, this pressure illustrates the wrong concept and purpose of marrying. People pursue marriage to meet social expectations instead of establishing a happy and everlasting family based on the belief of the one Almighty God, like stated by the Indonesian law. This happens because according to a study, 90% of participants felt the pressure to marry by society, which causes some to desire marriage for only social fulfillment. Another study, which investigated the purpose of marrying for Indonesians, shows that only 2 in 10 participants can state a response aligning with the purpose of marrying according to Indonesian law. This indicates that due to the pressure, people have the wrong concept and purpose of marrying. Second, pressure to marry affects the psychological well-being of single individuals negatively. Marriage pressure, like social stigma and exclusion, can drive singles to leave social spaces. In a study, one participant confessed her plan to move abroad, where her singleness will not become a problem, while another decides not to return home during Idul Fitri to avoid marriage pressure. Imagine the amount of self-blaming and stress that these individuals must have felt for them to leave their own community. Third, society's pressure to marry affects marriage stability. As we all know, love itself is not enough to withhold a marriage. There will be groceries bills that require money, work responsibilities that require stress management, and disagreements that require communication. That is why it is important for individuals to improve their marital readiness aspects in terms of financial, emotional, and social before marriage. Financial readiness consists of household income, house condition assets, and profession. Household income contributes 15% to marital satisfaction, while house condition assets and profession contributes 13% each. As for emotional readiness, it has a 95% correlation with marital satisfaction, and social steadiness, on the other hand, accounts for 31% to marital satisfaction. Unfortunately, due to pressure, some couples marry without considering these aspects, which made the divorce rate in Indonesia skyrocketed from 366,000 to 464,000 per year in just 7 years. After discussing the importance of marital readiness in building a stable marriage, the second argument will now prove that eliminating the societal pressure to marry will generate a more stable marriage. First, education is one of the most important methods to improve marital readiness in terms of financial, emotional, and social. Higher education means having more skills and knowledge, which raises a person's employment chances and payment level that guarantees their financial stability. A 2013 data in America shows that those with only a high school diploma have $95,000 as a median income, and that is equivalent to 992 million rupiah. However, the number was significantly lower than those with a tertiary education, which has a median income of around $270,000 to $690,000, and that is equivalent to 2.8 billion rupiah to 7.2 billion rupiah. Just like the saying, knowledge is wealth, and in this context, we can see how education can lead to financial stability. Not only that, education can also enhance emotional readiness. Now, I encourage all of you to refer back to the first time when you were doing a difficult math test. I believe, if not all, most of you panicked and struggled to solve it. However, as you go through more math tests, you are less panicked when facing a difficult questions. Well, This happens because education trains the capability of a person to manage their emotions while working under stress. A study in Norwegian University shows that students with higher emotional intelligence from active educational engagement were less likely to face delayed study progress or severe distress. This shows that education is significant for a person to stay emotionally healthy. Third, education can also enhance social readiness. School assignments, like group projects and group discussions, can expose a person to various types of people, which enhance their understanding of others' feelings and behaviors. As a result, this will enhance their communication and teamwork skills. One study suggests that a student's social skills improve as they progress in their academic journey, since it is found that final year students have a higher average scores for teamwork skills rather than second year students. Second, society's pressure to marriage prevents individuals from fulfilling their marital readiness aspects and getting to know their partner better. Setting an expected age or time for individuals to marry will prevent them from gaining the time needed for them to fulfill their marital readiness aspects and getting familiar with their partner. A woman in Tanzania's urban community who was pressured to marry at just 19 years old testified that her husband was abusive, which made her end the marriage. This happens because in early marriages, people have a shorter time to establish marital readiness and get to know their partner better. Another study showed that 60% of those who marry before the age of 20 experience divorce, while only 25% of them who marry in their early 30s experience divorce. The outcome shows that those in rushed marriages are less stable due to incomplete developmental phases in finance, emotion, and social readiness. Rushing into marriage is like building a house on sand. It may stand for a while, but it will eventually lead to collapse. Third, society should allow individuals to decide when to marry in order to shape personal responsibility. Self-determination theory believes that autonomy or freedom can grow a sense of responsibility in a person and the habit of learning from setbacks. If we apply this to societal pressure to marry, those who marry out of pressure tend to commit a flight response, like divorce, or point the blame on others when facing a mistake, instead of owning their own mistakes. In contrast, people who marry out of their own will tend to be more committed into the marriage and not blame others for their future marital conflicts. Last, eliminating the societal pressure to marry will generate a more stable society. First, when society eliminates the pressure, individuals can construct fulfilling marriages that provide the proper environment for children to grow, thus assembling a secure future generation and community. Unfortunately, some marriages are still driven by pressure, which may result in single-parent households or divorced families, and it is commonly known as broken homes. Broken homes are often incapable of providing children in terms of financial, emotional, role models for healthy relationships, and academic success. In terms of financial, divorced children are 28% more likely to live below the poverty level. On the other hand, these children also don't have sufficient emotional support system, since it is found that only 1 in 6 children see their fathers weekly, while less than half have seen theirs in over a year. In intimate relationships, boys are at a higher risk of STDs, while girls who grow up without their father before the age of 5 are 8 times more likely to become pregnant in adolescence. As for academics, single-parent families, children from single-parent families are 15% more likely to drop out of school. Second, stable families affect a country's economic health condition. One example of a welfare system is the Canada Child Benefit, which ensures that children from low income or divorced families from the age of 6 to 17 obtain the resources they require. Data shows that annually, Canada can spend around $7 billion just to cover the cost of family divorces. This happens because an increase in unstable households will lead to a rise in the government expenditure to support these households. In the United States, welfare aid costs can reach more than $200 billion, and 75% of this goes to single-parent families. The Indonesian government also allocates an average of $9,800 to public and private child welfare providers. Like a small spark that can start a great fire, an unstable family can significantly impact a country's economic condition. Third, a supportive family provides the proper environment for married individuals to acquire a good mental health. With superior psychological health, individuals can perform optimally and engage in social activities that contribute to society. Now, I encourage again all of you to refer back to the time when you are all still little and had a fight with your parents before school. Or maybe perhaps you are still experiencing it up until now. But I also want all of you to recall the feeling after it. You are upset, perhaps mad at your parents, but most importantly, you are unable to study well or focus on the lecture at school. This is a similar condition with individuals who stay in a dysfunctional marriage. Their condition at home affects their mental health, and as a result, they are unable to perform optimally at work. Analysis shows that divorced individuals or individuals who stay in a dysfunctional marriage are more likely to possess mental health problems. As a result, these individuals will struggle to contribute to society, since it is shown by the World Health Organizations that 9 in 10 participants who have severe mental health issues do not have jobs. Nevertheless, some people argue that eliminating the pressure will destroy the familial and religious values that bind Indonesian communities together. While this may be true, eliminating the pressure will result in a more firm families that is more aligned with the Indonesian values. As mentioned before, eliminating the pressure allows individuals to have autonomy over their marriage and the time needed for them to fulfill their marital readiness aspects. Hence, it is proven that eliminating the pressure to marry aligns with Indonesian religious and cultural principles that values firm and harmonious family bonds. Aside from values, some people also argue that eliminating the pressure will raise the chances of premarital sex or cohabitation. Couples will get older, and they won't have the urgency to get married. As a result, they will face greater temptation to engage in premarital activities. True it may be, pressuring individuals to marry is an ineffective solution to prevent it. Data shows that premarital activities from individuals from the age of 15 to 24 kept increasing in Indonesia at the same time when society still applies pressure. On the other hand, education is proven to be a more effective method, since it is found that those who attended university are 53% less likely to engage in premarital activities than those who only attended high school. Hence, it is proven that education is an effective method to prevent premarital activities, while pressuring individuals is an ineffective method. Throughout this thesis, we discussed reasons why Indonesia should abolish the pressure to marry, to create a better society. The reason begins with its negative effects on individuals and their personal development, which leads to unstable families and an unhealthy environment for children to live in. This will then disturb a person's work performance and increase government expenditure. As a result, Indonesia is left with its people, future generation, and their economy at risk. Unfortunately, the pressure to marry continues to spread in today's Indonesian society. Allowing this pressure to continue to spread will only result in a more severe negative effects for individuals, families, and society. More single individuals will face exclusion. Family separation will continue to escalate. And the government needs to contribute more funds to fix the impacts of family breakdowns. Therefore, what should we do as a part of the Indonesian society? Mandy Hale, author of The Single Woman Life, Love, and a Dash of Sass, Embracing Singleness with Confidence, stated, "Change starts with you. When you step up, you invite others to step up too." So, whether you are the victim or perpetrator, we must work together to end the long-standing pressure to marry in Indonesia's society. We can start by minimizing unnecessary comments about a person's relationship status and instead focus on the importance of commitment and planning before marriage. Single individuals should also try to communicate their situations for currently not seeking marriage instead of withdrawing themselves from society. A collective effort from everyone to end the societal pressure to marry will result in a more stable society. Thank you.
Great job, Natasha. Our panelists today are Ms. Josephine and Mr. Zora, and I'll give the mic to Ms. Josephine first. Go ahead.
All right, hi Natasha.
Hi, Ms. Josephine.
Really nice presentation, really nice paper. I enjoyed reading every bit of it.
Thank you.
In all honesty, I picked to be your panelist because your topic really intrigues me. And I find it pretty hard to ask questions because I totally agree with all of it. But aside from that, I still need to ask questions. So,
Okay.
I didn't find it in your paper, and I might have missed it. But what form of pressure is considered as societal pressure in this context?
I think what is considered as societal pressure is when that perpetrator or the one who's doing the pressure keeps doing this one action that pressures single individuals repeatedly over and over again. So, for example, asking questions like, when are you going to get married? It is not a pressure if it is only asked once, but if it asked in every family gatherings and over a period that is long enough, even though the single individuals themselves already explained their situations for currently not seeking marriage, I think it can be considered as a pressure. But to give you examples of some societal pressure, as I've mentioned before, is, for example, is social stigma. Negative views towards single individuals in society, especially these single individuals who are already past their late 20s. Sometimes they are viewed as weird or not normal because they haven't been in a relationships or planning into getting married, while the others in the society are already married or planning to get married. And the other example is social exclusion. Sometimes single individuals are also face social exclusion from some communities because they haven't married or haven't gotten a partner yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Related to that, right? If this is uncomfortable for you to answer, don't answer.
Okay.
But have you experienced this sort of pressure yourself?
As someone who has never been in a serious relationships, and I'm already 18 years old, by the way, I have experienced some pressure. Well, it is not an extreme, it's not something that I put into my heart or anything, but I have felt some pressure where some relatives or perhaps people around in my surroundings ask questions like, why you haven't gotten a boyfriend yet? You're already 18 years old, and so.
Okay, and how did you respond to those pressures?
Personally, I would respond with just smiling to them or taking it as a joke, or perhaps I would say response. Sometimes I think this is the most common way for most people to respond. Excuse my Indonesian language. Ya udah, didoain aja biar cepet dapet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you mentioned in your paper about the effect of education and employment, that it's huge on women.
Yeah.
Why is it much bigger impact on women rather than men? Is it?
So, sorry, to clarify your questions, why is it the pressure to marry is more impactful on women who pursue education and employment rather than men who postpone their marriage to pursue education and employment?
Correct.
Okay. So, I think the pressure itself relies heavily more on women because we live in, I can say, a society where we expect men to become the head of the family. And so when they pursue education and employment more rather than marriage, we perceive them more as someone who is honorable or noble. Oh, you are actually trying to develop your financial stability first before you are married. So then, when you are married, you can provide well for your children and family. But it is not in the same case with women, because women are expected to just become housewives in our society, even though it is not something that is widespread again in the urban community. But some people and communities still have a mindset that it's okay. In the end, when you marry a man, you will end up being a housewife and taking care of your child. So I think that is why the pressure is more into men rather than women.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Okay, you've mentioned, I think, Singapore, Japan, South Korea. We know that the birth rates are declining,
Yep.
marriage rates are also declining, and I think it also applies in Indonesia, right? Okay, now with this sort of societal pressure, I mean, you're telling us to abolish this societal pressure. With that, does that not also encourage or lead to less people getting married and therefore less birth rates?
I agree that perhaps if we eliminate the pressure to marry, it will lead to the decrease in birth rate or the rates for marriage. But I think it is better to have that rather than to have a marriage that is not with good quality or many dysfunctional marriage. If we have a society that pressures people to marry, people will marry out of pressure instead of their own will or their own intentions and beliefs. As a result, it will create a marriage that is unprepared and leads to a dysfunctional family. And as a result, it will also produce a child that is not of, good quality or that has issues because of their conditions at home. In contrast, if the society itself choose to not pressure marriage, people will marry out of their own will and once they are ready, which means I am ready to commit into my partner, and as a result, they will have, as I mentioned before in proof 3, they will have more sense of autonomy or responsibility for their marriage and also the children that they will produce. And as a result, the children itself will have will develop with a more supportive environment, which supports their development.
Okay, with what you're saying, am I correct in saying this? Are you saying that these people who are rushed to get married, do they not have their own opinions? Like, okay, I'm not ready to get married, so, okay, yes, I will find a boyfriend, let's say, or a girlfriend for the guys, and potentially get married in some near future, but then I will not be rushed because I'm not ready financially or etc.
Sorry, so to clarify your question, is it like
So do these people not have the planning first? Like, don't they have the time? Aren't they able to make their plannings first instead of being influenced by all these pressure?
So, especially in Indonesia, I believe that because marriage is still very tied with family and also with cultures, and Indonesian society is an Asian countries which we value our opinions of our parents most. And so when relatives or families or parents ask them to get married, they will feel rushed or have a sense of responsibility that, oh, I must get married for my parents. And sometimes, yes, these individuals don't have the aspects of marital readiness that I've mentioned, such as financial, emotional, and social, when they commit into a marriage.
So can we say that, okay, yes, we need to abolish this social pressure, but we also need to have people who are more strong in their beliefs that, okay, if I don't want to get married, then I won't have to listen to all these people pressuring me.
Yes, I believe that for my thesis to work, I think it must come from both parties, not only the perpetrator or known as who pressure it, but also from the single individuals who are the victim. They must have their own standing, their own belief, and their own actualization of their self-worth. Yeah, thank you.
Can I have one last question? All right, one last question. Would it be a stretch for me to say that would you rather have people being single, because now the trend is singlehood, right? One of the trends, the current, all these trend of being single, would you rather having people that stay single or this pressure?
I personally believe myself that I rather have a community that are still singles in their like early 20s or middle 20s, rather than having a community who is pressured by marriage and they married only out of pressure and end up in dysfunctional families and they are not happy.
Okay, Mr. Zorn?
Okay, thank you, Natasha, for the excellent oration.
Thank you, Mr.
I have to say it's worthwhile to be made into stories or shorts, the spikes. Marriage counselor kind of vibe.
Mm.
Yeah. And for your...
I'll take that into note, yeah, as career options.
Maybe, who knows. Find someone first, yeah, before that.
Sure, yeah, of
I'll
course.
wait for someone. Anyway, for your thesis, I must say it's a watertight kind of thesis, and I wholeheartedly agree with the whole arguments because we're here, we are in that kind of age. Yeah. And as such, I would like to actually ask probing questions about your research and how it has these hypothetical scenarios. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Number one, it goes with the idea of abolishment.
Mm-hmm.
You've consistently mentioned abolish, like destroy, eradicate, like not exactly that, but yeah, strong words, yeah. And I'm like, wow, how do you like abolish that? So as I know, abolish had to do usually with the government, and at least when I see the paper, it doesn't. You do mention some about legal requirements and all that, but I don't see much government role in your, at least in your arguments. Maybe can you maybe outline one or two possible policies government should enforce? Yeah.
So some efforts that the Indonesian government has made to end the societal pressure, even though it is not directly within words to the public media, but there are some policies that the government has made. So one of them is the amendment to the marriage law. So they changed the minimum age required for men and women to get married. For girls, it is from 16, and it is changed into 19, which is equal with boys now. And it has just been recently changed back in 2019. And not only that, the Indonesian government also have a sector that is called Ministry of Women's Empowerment and Child Protection. And there are some programs that this ministry has provided. One of it is pengarusutamaan gender, which is a strategy to include both male and female gender perspectives into the decision of the government, whether it is like building policies or such like that. And not only that, the government has also implemented more reproductive health education in public schools. So it teaches children the danger of early marriages, especially in terms of biologically. And not only that...
I think that's
okay,
good
that's
enough.
enough.
Yeah, I'm already
Okay.
confused.
Thank you,
Now,
sir.
Before you yap further, yeah, let's just go with what's your preferred age that the government should make it legal? 19 clearly is not enough. We've had these problems for the last 2-3 years, right? So what's in your research, in your argument, what's the legal age? What should be? How much?
So referring back again to my thesis, because I believe that education can enhance emotional, financial, and also social readiness, I believe that the government must set the minimum age required to marry between 22 years old or 23 years old, because that is the time where individuals start graduating from their university. At least they already got a bachelor degree. And I believe that sufficient education is necessary to build a stable family.
Okay, thank you. So maybe like 24, 25, yeah, and
Yeah.
after that. Right. So here's the thing. You were the judge in the Bumi Manusia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when you see the story, it's a story of early marriage, right? Between one Indo and one like local guy. Yeah. Such an early marriage and such a tragic case that happened afterward. Yeah. What would you say to the system if you were living in those times?
To be honest, when I first read the book itself, I felt very, very unease because how they portray the woman and in contrast with how they portray the man himself. But I also need to take from other perspectives that is more of a tolerance perspective. I need to understand that this book is created in the past where awareness like societal pressure to marriage or gender equality is still not a thing that is aware by old people. So I think is your question is what is my perspective on?
Yes, your perspective.
My perspective is that I think, yeah, the way they portray marriage is too much of something that is portraying as the ultimate goal of happiness. Because as we all know, Minke and Annelies can only be happy when they are together and when they are married. However, I do not think that is the case. But other than that, I think we can also take other good morals from the book of Bumi Manusia other than the marital pressure that they portray.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and as some say it, marriage is in itself an afterlife. It can be a heaven or hell, some say it, yeah. Now, about the marriage itself, yeah. Continuing with the abolishment, I have to say sometimes, I think the way you phrase it, maybe I get it wrong, as if you demonize the pressure. Like it's bad, it's ugly, it's toxic, blah, 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 blah. But I think, as I see it myself, and as anyone sees it, it's tip of the iceberg. There's more than that. Like, aside from saying, kapan nikah, that's just one word that hides a lot of complexities, right? Can you maybe outline some of these complexities behind the pressure so we can at least see the nuances?
So to clarify your questions, like maybe I provide some perspectives when a person asks that question?
Yes.
Like what are the intentions of the person
Yes.
maybe to ask that
Yeah,
question?
they may use the pressure as a weapon, but behind the weapon there's a motive, there's an intent, right? Yeah. What do you
Okay.
say?
So yes, I think when a person asks a question like, for example, when are you going to get married? There are perhaps some sense of concern, especially from parents for the child himself or herself, because of course they don't want their children to live alone, especially in that age. Maybe they felt a concern. But as I've mentioned before to the first question of Miss Josephine, if the single individuals already communicate their situations for currently not seeking marriage, especially when it's a reasonable situation, like, oh, I haven't found the right partner yet, I don't think I'm capable of committing into a relationship just now, and the perpetrator or the one who pressured the marriage keeps asking the questions over and over again, especially to a more extreme level, I think it is where the line of that question becomes a marriage pressure that is negative.
Okay, so it's a case by case, yeah, depending
Yeah,
on the content and relation.
depending
Yeah. Now, my next question has to be in a more of a government or state. Yeah, here's the thing. This country isn't perfect. It has many problems. Yeah.
Yeah.
We studied in our classes. Yeah, and not just that, in maybe other classes, and as such, it's amazing to see a marriage that is so everlasting. It's amazing to see a marriage that's so happy. So despite this, mind my words, yeah, bad education, at first culture, at first pressure, some marriages last. They are resilient, they have happy kids, and they are thriving. Yeah. What makes this marriage survive and strong regardless of these pressures, regardless of this societal toxicity, I would say, in your opinion?
I think, in my opinion, is because when they start the marriage itself, the foundation itself is already a right foundation. They do not marry out of pressure, but they marry out of their own will, and they have this commitment like, okay, this is my choice to marry my partner. I will take care of his or her for the rest of my life. And but as I've mentioned before, love and commitment itself is not enough to withhold a marriage, right? So I think what makes this a success marriage is because they already prepared financial, emotional, and also social readiness prior to the marriage, which creates a stable and healthy marriage.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one last question. Can I have it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, one last question. I think you should talk more about love in your thesis, actually, because, well, marriage goes by love, right? So, yeah. Aside from that, one last question. You mentioned about this SDT, yeah, self-determination theory, a method to solve problems by giving it more personal autonomy, which is agreeable. I understand that. But, I tend to be a bit skeptic, seeing your friends, seeing not just your friends, but previous generations or whatever, people always abuse freedom. People always make the worst use of it, yeah. And I don't know, marriage is such a complex endeavor. Can you maybe add this theory by adding other theory that supports this idea that giving freedom to couples might in fact boost healthy marriages? Just other theory that you know. My last question.
So, as for the name of the theory itself, I apologize that I do not know, but I can explain the concept to you. So first, I think it is important for an autonomy or freedom to be given boundaries. Like, for example, we allow individuals to marry, to decide when they want to marry. But we do not tolerate any form of premarital activities, or such as sex or cohabitation. That is the boundaries that we put. And not only that, I think when you compare it to my friends, because we are speaking in terms of me and my friends are still in a developmental phases where perhaps our critical thinking and our decision making is still not well. That's why we abuse this freedom, and that is why we need to have more boundaries to our freedom. But we are speaking in terms of individuals who are already 21 above, and perhaps someone in their early 30s, where their development of critical thinking and decision making is already mature enough, and when they are given an amount of freedom that is quite big, they can utilize it well. However, it must also still be within a boundaries.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead,
we're
Mr. Wade.
completely out of time. You've done a great job, Natasha. Thank you very much. We will. We will meet over here with Natasha for photos with friends and family, and then at 11 o'clock we'll have Audrey.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Thank you, Miss.